Hi, welcome to Secret Ballet Coach. Today we're doing a segment called Intro to Ballet where we break down everything about a specific movement. So today we're going to talk about plie. So let's just start out with, what does it mean? Plie means to bend, and it looks like this. It is literally just the bending of your knees. And it's a primary movement in ballet. So it's the fundamental piece of movement that goes in and out of many movements. And depending on the sequence of where it lands, it has many different uses. So let's just start at the beginning. Normally, plie is going to be either the first or the second exercise you do at the bar. So why do we do plie? So there's a couple functions when we do plie at the bar. So the first is that it's a stretch. So when you plie, it's stretching the back of your calf and your Achilles tendon. And given all of the upward and calf strength heavy movements used in ballet, it's very important to start with stretching the back of your lower leg. Otherwise, you can get overuse injuries. Now, there's a second aspect to plie, and that's a strengthening aspect. So plie is also important to strengthen your quads, your glutes, and open and strengthen your hips simultaneously, especially when you get to grand plie, which is the one where you go all the way down. Which brings us to, there are two types of plie. There's demi and grand. So demi means half, and demi plie means that you're just bending until your heels can stay on the floor. Grand plie, in most positions, means your heels are going to come off the floor. Now, when you demi-plie, there's not going to be a single demi-plie where your heels peel off. So that's very important. If you let your heels come up during demi-plie, you're losing all of that lengthening and stretching that we just talked about. So it's very important that when you demi-plie, you keep your feet flat and your heels pressed into the floor. Now when you grand plie, there's a couple tips. You don't want to grand plie all the way down and rest. It's not a resting position. You're not squatting like you would if you were like waiting and you got tired and you couldn't sit down, right? So that's not grand plie. Grand plie, you want to go down just until the top of your calf and the bottom of your thigh touch. That's it. From there, you're going to come back up. Now, the reason we do that is that strengthening factor. So if you were to try it, and if you try to slowly bend down and then just stop where the two meet, you will feel all those muscles firing. Okay, so that's how deep you want to go. Now the exception to that is second position. When you grand plie in second, depending on your level, I would say if you're very new to ballet, don't get too wide with your second position. It's much harder to control the position. So you're just going to go wider than your shoulders. And when you grand plie, your heels will stay down because your hips are not going to go lower than your knees. If you're having pretty open hips and your strength is doing pretty well, you can go all the way down to the level of your knees, but you're not going to go past it and you're not going to pull your heels up. So second position is sort of the exception. When you grand plie in fourth or in fifth, your heels will peel up off the floor. Now there's a couple things you want to keep in mind when you plie. One of the key ones is your alignment. When you're in a first position in your demi-plie, you want to make sure that your feet are nice and flat. So it's very common to want to over turn out from your ankles and really twist to get that like flat turnout that people think is so nice. And it is if you're doing it from your hips. But when you twist your feet like that, you end up really messing up your alignment, which can create a lot of room for injuries. So you want your feet to be nice and flat. So if you start with your feet parallel and you just open your toes, and try to open your toes without rocking your butt back and doing anything like that. Just open your feet and stop. That's probably about where your turnout is. And from there, as you get stronger, it will improve. But don't force it by twisting in your feet. From there, when you plie, you want your big toe, your pinky toe, and the center of your heel to be evenly weighted on the floor, like a nice, stable triangle, okay? So you don't want to roll forward towards your big toe, and you don't want to be rolling back towards your pinky toe. As you bend your knees and straighten, You want those feet to stay nice and flat so that you're really evenly supported from the bottom. Now, when you get into the center, plie's use changes a little bit. So plie in the center is used for two main things. It's for your pushing power momentum and for your shock absorption. So for example, if you're gonna do a pirouette and you're pushing off for your pirouette, the momentum for your turn is gonna come from the power created in your plie. So you have to really use your plie and then press down into the floor to create the power and the momentum to do your turn. The same thing for jumps. If you were to just do a sauté in first, right, like this, there's two uses of plie in that. The first is to create the power. So you push down and then using the force in your legs, you push against the floor to propel yourself into the air. That's the first use, the power use. The second use is the shock absorption when you land. So all of your body has come up into the air during a jump, and when you land, something has to catch all of that, hopefully gracefully. So that's gonna be your plie. So if you have too shallow of a plie, the shock of the landing will end up going out through other parts of your body and it will look very out of control. Or if you land and your heels pop up, you're gonna rob yourself of that important stretching and you can get tendonitis and overuse injuries over time. So that shock absorption in your landing is very, very key. So you have the push in the power of the takeoff, and then you catch all of that sort of fighting gravity to have a nice controlled landing, and that's the second part of your plie. So those are the ways that plie gets used the most in ballet. There's one more way that you'll sometimes see plie used, and that is for transitioning your weight from foot to foot. So there's a movement called Plie, which is just plie, moving your weight, transferring it from one foot to the other. And they can get fancier over time, right? They can get kind of crazy, but the key thing about Plie is that you're transitioning your weight from one foot to the other. Generally, plie is used to do that. So you're gonna catch your weight on one foot and then you're gonna push off and transfer it to the other side and vice versa. So that's an extra way that we often see plie used. So now that you know more about what plie is for, I challenge you to go to the bar and really pay attention to your plies. Because if you can get plie, you've just unlocked a whole bunch of other movements. It's definitely worth a little extra practice. Thanks for dancing with me today. If you liked today's class, please like and subscribe below. If you have any requests or questions, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and you can always email me at secretballetcoach@gmail.com. Until next time, keep it on the QT.